All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, Jeffrey. Serena, welcome. Jeff Bridget, how are you? Hi, Ruchi, or sorry if I'm not pronouncing
Hi.
it correctly. Welcome. Hey, guys. So good to see
Hey, how
you.
you doing?
Doing really good. Happy to see you, my brother.
Hello, this is
Yeah,
Ruchi.
yeah.
Say that again. It's Ruchi.
Yeah, Ruchi from India, New Delhi.
Welcome. Oh my God, we're really, really
Namaste.
honored you're coming in from India. Thank you so much for being here. And Vermont and Long Island.
We're in Ganesh for you.
Jai Jai Ganesh. Jai Jai Ganesh. Beautiful. Serena, are you in New Jersey? I thought so. Are you guys okay? Everything okay with the floods there?
Actually, yeah, but my sister and my best friend's family farm was hit really bad from the tornado. So, doing a lot of cleanup and trying to collect money for my friend's farm. It's one of the biggest farms in South Jersey for peach farms.
I hope everything. Oh,
So, everybody's safe, but things really got pretty bad. So,
that's the most
yeah,
important thing. If everyone's safe and every
everyone's safe.
prayers and love and light to all of them. In my personal experience, every time I was devastated by something, I had the amazing opportunity to be forced into change and evolution. And not trying to be didactic, so my heart goes out to them, but it does recall. This is a good place. Welcome everybody. This is a good place to start. We're talking about the floods just for a second, and talking about devastation in life. It is 10:01 your time, so I'm going to give a few more seconds before we dive in, and I will start with this because it's up and so many things. In 1994, I used to be a photographer, right? You guys know I was a fashion photographer and an advertising photographer. I had the coolest studio. I think I was the top one, two, three of the country as far as what the studio looked like, and I had a big name. This rain came, and it rained for 3 days, and a river flooded above the studio, and the river went down the road and into my studio. And overnight, I lost everything, all my equipment. I'm talking about over $200,000 worth of equipment, which I quickly realized that my insurance had expired the month before and I just had nothing. and and I was like, it forced me to leave. It forced me to say I have to shut down. I have no way to overcome this. And it was the beginning of the next chapter of my life, which is our chapter here now. So I kind of stumbled for a few years actually after that, but here we are. Um, what's shamanism for skeptics? I'm going to go right into it because one of the things that I've discovered is time does not exist. So we have 58 minutes. Usually 58 minutes feel more like less than 8 minutes. So I'm going to dive into it. Uh, I think I was inspired to throw out that title, Shamanism for Skeptics. What is Shamanism for Skeptics? Because every now and then, on a rare occasion, we get some really funny or weird or critical, what do you call it, messages on, not messages, comments on Facebook. So, and of course, I see many of you already know me, and I'm going to say, of course, you realize when I get all these like negative or kind of weird comments, I automatically smile because it's just like, um, so I mean, I should start jotting them down, and then I'll have to talk to Bridget. So we have to do a write up, Bridget, together because you know how to write up comedy and
Sure.
how to bring things into light. It's just like, really, really, so, is that so? Um, and yeah, so I'm not going to even go to the comments, but they're really really funny and they're really basically contradictory. But not only that, I'm just going to go right ahead and I'm hoping that people join that are skeptics and just diving into the topic. And I'm going to start, before I'm going to say what shamanism is, I'm going to say what skeptic is. So I'm going to talk about both those words, what they mean, how they apply. And I'm going to try to keep it short because I do want to hear questions. Starting from the fact that I remember in like 2003, before my diagnosis, 2003, when I got my diagnosis and I had stage 4 cancer, and they told me you got 90 days to live, you got 3 months. I was like, oh my God, I have to find, what am I going to do? I'm going to find the sorcerers, because that's the word I had in my mind from Carlos Castaneda's books, sorcerers. I have to find the sorcerers so they can heal me. And then I started thinking, and what are these people? So it's like two, three realizations. One is that shamans, for me at the moment when I thought of that, like the sorcerers, it's like, how am I going to go and find a sorcerer? I'm going to have to go down somewhere in Mexico, go out of a town, go out of a village, or go into Peru, go to South America, in the jungle, and try to find out from word of mouth, to ask people to guide me to find someone, because obviously shamanism is something extinct, something rare, and it's going to be impossible to find, or very difficult for me to find. And in these last 18 years, especially the last 16 years that I've been in close relationship and apprenticeship with 3 awesome, amazing human beings, shamans, through the years, like, I'm beginning to change the understanding of what a shaman is, especially as I've been initiated from the Shipibo tribe with the ayahuasqueros in the depth of the jungle. I've been initiated on 3 levels of initiation from the Andean shamans, the Pacos, right, the Q'ero Nations people, and I stand amongst them as a Alto Mesayo, a high shaman, and a Kerak Aluek, which is the visionary, a seer, a sorcerer. And I look back, and to say, first of all, about the first thing is like, when I went down to Mexico, I started walking into shamans like every other day, outside the temples, further down. I would ask someone and they would immediately bring me someone. I went down to Peru. I've met 150 shamans or more in Peru. It's just like, shamans are everywhere and have always been. Shamanism is the most ancient healing science that exists. It started over 30,000 years ago, when the first human beings, that shift that happened from Neanderthal to Homo sapien, that moment, what happened is we magically got this prefrontal cortex, the neocortex. And then the neocortex is loaded with this piece ability of perception, of empathy, sympathy, love, compassion, intuition, and several other important functions, especially in regarding communication with others and understanding of the environment. So you get these first people that got their upgrade first. Remember when the iPhones came out? Some people got the iPhones immediately. I was with a Razor, what do you call that, flip phone, for another decade. Some people got the iPhone first, and then they got to tell the people what it's like to actually have an iPhone. This is not an advertisement on iPhones. It's whatever the next technology, and talking about what shamans are. I mean, even for me, Steve Jobs was a shaman, because everyone is saying, "You're kidding me." It was only in Star Trek that people could look each other in the phone and talk real time. That's silly. That's impossible. And just to show my age, it seemed impossible to have an ATM. How are you going to have a machine? You're going to tell it, and it's going to give you the money? That doesn't work. It's never going to happen. So, just to show my age, in Greece, I was about 27 when ATMs came out. But the essence is that the shaman is a person that can see, right from 30,000 years ago, began to see clearer than everyone else around. So they were the first to start lighting the fire. They were the first to start realizing that the people that were going to sleep outside the circle, away from the fire, would possibly be taken away, and would be taken away by other larger predators. They realized that in groups and around the fire, people are safe, and through the exchange of closeness, relations, affection, being together allowed for everyone in the group to grow. And they kept on wanting to keep the group together because they were sorry to watch people be taken away from larger predators. So they began to develop storytelling. Now, I want to back out from the history a little bit, fast forward, because that can be many hours of history, because shamanism is, the shamans are the first thinking people. So I'm going to come back to the word skeptic, because I said I'll talk about both words. And the word skeptic, guess what? It's a Greek word. Surprise, surprise. And as a Greek, I'll say that it means the thinker. And I kind of looked it up with Nina. We went into thesaurus, we went into dictionary, and it means the person that doubts, the person that is not, that doesn't buy into something that everyone else automatically does. It's the person that while the crowd moves into buying something, into something, that person stays back and says, wait a minute, I want to think more about this and understand it. So back to history, while the people were doing everything that they were doing, roaming around, grabbing some meat, eating, sitting, being Neanderthals, there comes a person that says, wait a minute, I'm a skeptic. We want to pause for a moment and think about this, and think about how we're going to act, think about how we're going to be sleeping at night, think about how we could be safer, think about how we can evolve. I think till today, because we had that first run about 30,000 years ago, I think till today the shamans hold the gold record and are still in first place in the ones that are really actual skeptics. Because what we have today is, while I could say I'm a skeptic, and that means in the modern world of Europe and America only, after magic was persecuted for more than 300, 400 years in Europe, everyone, if you say magic, shamanism, everyone says, I have no idea, I don't know what you're talking about. Nowhere close to me, because if you were anywhere close to, you would be also taken and put to the pyre or hung or stoned, and not the other kind of stone, stoned with stones, right? So see what happened, and we're not aware of it. You know, I hear all sorts of stories, and you know, we live very far away. We live in the jungle. We don't watch TV. We're skeptics. We don't buy into all this. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has a strong opinion. Everything. From news to this, to that, to that. I'm not even using words, no trigger words. The shamans are still the skeptics. I don't only doubt everything, I think things through, and I make sure that everything that I introduce to my life has to do with my healing, my evolution, and my ability to still be compassionate and loving and able to communicate with those around me. So skeptics today, or a lot of people that I've met that say, well, I'm a skeptic, and that me, myself included 20 years ago, I say that the only real skeptics are the people that step out of the box. So if we're buying into a box that this modern society says shamanism is what, I don't know my English, mumbo jumbo, or is kind of like, if it's like new agey and kind of like whatever, I'm going to answer to that if you're in mainstream, so that's too far away from you, then you're in what's called samsara, right? Samsara is the illusionary world. And that's essentially what was happening then. People were in the illusion that they need to run to grab food and eat, and they need to grab things because they're Neanderthals. They didn't have a prefrontal cortex. They didn't have empathy. They would shove you, grab your food, and run, right? Because they didn't say, well, my brother, maybe we'll share yours today and we'll share mine tomorrow. That came along quite later on. And what I'm seeing is this trickling through while they try to eradicate shamanism. What they did, and magic through the dark ages of all times, right? What they did is they perpetuated that kind of behavior. They perpetuated what was there before. I'm going to grab, I'm going to have more than you, and I might not share. And what happened in that kind of mentality that I needed from me, and at best case scenario, I'll use it with my family, uh, that perpetuation created the Roman Empire, and the Roman Empire created this whole idea of like, I'm not going to only have, I'm going to have the whole planet. This isn't a human, this is a Western idea born in the Roman Empire. And it's just like, I'm not going to take not only enough from me and my family, not enough from me and my country. I'm not just take. So this greediness is awakening, and it's a Neanderthal greediness because you can only eat so much, you can only drink so much, you can only enjoy so much. There's a cap to everything because we're small mammals. Like, how much am I going to eat? But the Roman Empire gives this spark, which is a spark of a right. This is a dictatorship they had, right? All of these emperors, like no even Romans, Italians, whatever we'd call them, was free. They were all under that regime, and the whole rest of the world. Then they were going. They conquered Greece. They conquered what's modern Turkey, Israel. They went around Egypt. They conquered the hell out of everything. And showing this greediness that it gave way to create Europe, that then gave way to create the United States, that gave way to a way of being that is self-centered. And the difference of self-centered and self-focused with a myopic ability to say, well, I'm looking at what I'm going to eat and what I'm going to drink and how many TVs or how many cars or whatever it is that we think that we can fill in the void, and that never is filled by any material goods. But it's that myopic understanding. It's like, wait a minute, let me take my eyes from looking at this greediness and look outside, because once, and this is what the shaman said, say pause for a moment and look around you. Look at that tree. No, look at it. Look at that tree. And stay here for an hour and look at that tree and look at it sway and hear the sound that it makes. And watch to how many species it gives home to. How many birds are there? How many different bugs are there? Where do these roots go to? How do they communicate with the water? How do the leaves communicate with the wind? What does it do in the fall? What does it do in the winter? And learn from it. Look at the tree and learn, because it's consciousness of God. And look at that bird that's sitting on it, and look at that jaguar, and look at that anteater or the armadillo. So the shaman is a person that is a skeptic in the original Greek meaning of the word, is a thinker and an analyzer, and is a person that does not take for granted what's just been served around. And what has been served around us in all of Europe and the United States, in the Western, I'll just say Western world, just I don't want to offend any country. I'm European and American, I'm Greek American, and it is my heritage and I'm proud of it. And it is my mission to share this work of the shamans with everyone in the Western world. So I'm proud of it that I'm there, because I have been given a mission to really share all this work. And so the essence is that the shaman is the real thinker, is the one that does not buy into what the collective consciousness buys into. And as far as what I was thinking when I was thinking about the shamans being these people, mysterious men and women that had superpowers and that could be super cool and almost super dangerous, or intimidating coolly somehow, something. I've come to, and I see several of you who have met my beloved teachers, to realize that the shamans, and these shamans, because there's all kinds of shamans, I should speak to that too, but these shamans that I've been working with gave me a whole other understanding and dimension of what sweetness means. I come from a sweet family. My father's a sweet guy, was an amazing guy and a poet. My mom is sweet and always talks about life and the sweetness of life. But these guys, oh my God, they outdid us all together. Affection, kindness, acceptance, even admiration. Every time I would go back, and Don Francisco would say, okay, now we're going to open, we're going to bring in the jaguars. Hampu torongo, hampu, hampu. And I would say hampu. He would look at me with such admiration Anything from, oh my God, you've already become the greatest shaman of the world, to, oh, I'm your dad, and it's the first day I come to kindergarten to see you say a poem. And that same admiration from looking at me as a child to looking at me as the greatest shaman on the planet. And if we could only hold each other, if we could only hold each other a few minutes every day in that light, we would change the world. No, the world would change. We'd have to do nothing. The world would change. So I don't have anything against skeptics. I'm the #1 skeptic. And for those who have come to the training, and for those of you who will, keep on thinking, keep on doubting, keep on asking questions, keep on investigating, but don't keep on holding on to old ways. Investigate something, not to tear it down, not to pick up stones and throw at something. It's like, oh, shamanism, that's weird. Let me throw a stone. You guys are weird. It's like, sure, we're totally weird. I'd rather be weird a million times than be mainstream asleep. I'd rather be weird a million times than be mainstream asleep. Because yoga and the ancient Indian shamans that created yoga said that if you don't awaken the mechanisms of your body, and if you don't bring the electricity to your front side of your body, to your neocortex in your heart, you will be in your amygdala and your adrenals, and you will go where the mobs are going, all the way to the left. And then, oh, we're all going to the right. We're all pro this or against that. We're all this or that. It was just like, and I'll speak to this mechanism and pause and open it to a couple questions, or to be at least like to connect, because I want to hear what your question is if you don't know what shamanism is, or if you haven't felt inside you that moment that you knew someone was going to call. You haven't felt inside you that you had the intuition and you knew something was going to happen, and it happened. Because I know we're all shamans, and being so close for 16 years, tight with families, watching Francisco's children grow, Sebastian's children grow, watching my son Jason grow. We're family. We're like, people tell me, well, maybe you're not Peruvian and shouldn't be teaching this stuff. It's like, excuse me, just, we're family here, and colors for us don't matter. Borders, colors, cultures, we're the human culture, we're the human family. We have the human rights to be in relationship to each other, no matter what the language, no matter what the ethnicity, no matter what the trees and what the animals. We are all and should all be in communion as we are all one. So in essence, the skeptic is the person that steps back and says, I want to feel into it. In essence, the person that is, the shaman is a person that trusts his or her own intuition and is in love with nature and receives her information from nature itself. Even if it is opening the TV to watch a wildlife documentary, you can learn through that. I'll say this one more statement. So the yogis taught us that it's really quick for us to be able to, because again, those groups were getting together around the fire, we realized that if I stay outside the group, I may be eaten by a larger predator. And that's really deeply ingrained in us. So when we belong in a group, may that be a book club, may that be a religious group, may that be a football or a soccer group, we feel that we belong and we feel safe. And how do we belong and how do we feel safe? Maybe we belong in a neighborhood and we talk to neighbors, or a family and we're talking to neighbors. How do we know we're safe? We're going to have to ask, am I safe with you? And they say yes. And you say, how am I safe? And they say, you're safe as long as you don't pose threat to this group. Because if you pose threat to this group, that group will fall apart and we'll all be eaten by predators. Now, this is no philosophy. I wanted to say this because this is deeply ingrained in our nervous system, right behind here in the reptilian brain. We wouldn't be alive as a species if this wasn't ingrained deep into us. There's many species that don't exist. And I'm not referring to the ones that the humans wiped out, which is in the hundreds of thousands of species which we brought to its end and to extinction. That's for another workshop and another moment to talk about. That's another sad story. But Talking about us. So what's happening now is like when I ask a friend, and especially afterwards when everyone was talking about if you have anything to do with magic, you're going to be put to the pyre. They're going to burn you, they're going to stone you, they're going to crucify you. Everyone stopped talking about magic. Everyone said, I have nothing to do with magic. And we have Europe and the Western world, a world that does not believe in magic and believes in government and believes in officials, the officials that will bring their religion to them, and you can only go to God through the religious ways, maybe that's the church, maybe be the group, etc., or with the permission of the government. So what happens now if I ask friends and say, yeah, you should better not talk about shamanism. It's just like, because that's not the way of things. And then we all will be kicked out. I would talk to people at Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health, which I taught yoga out of shamanism and martial arts for 15 years. And people, when I say I work with shamans, 15 years ago, people would be like, oh, and they would politely, slowly walk away. Yes, there's a little bit of a shift, and thank God, or thank nature, thank all the animals, thank Shiva. Everyone here is like, when I said, guys, I talk about shamanism, you all leaned in. So you're the skeptics, and I see maybe there's like the ones who want to learn. We are the ones we want to inquire and learn more about the true nature of who we are and what is around us. And I'll pause to that. It's just like, I think one of the things that I found really interesting is that when I was doing shamanic sessions, I discovered that working with some people, some men and women that were like really deep into business and were really successful, they would really get it. I found it astonishing. People, I worked with this person one time, and he said, I have 127,000 employees. And at the end of the session, he said, this stuff, I really get it. This is so cool. This is so cool. Because that guy was a shaman. I won't say who this guy was, but to have 127,000 employees, I used to have an employee once. At 127,000 employees, I'm not going to even talk about the money. But he got it because you know what? He's a shaman. Because if you ask me, most people are going to say, I can't have 100%. That can't something impossible. He made that possible. Steve Jobs made the phone possible. Carl Jung made this whole other opening to us to understand that there's metaphysics, that the I Ching, that there's ways to see into the future, there's ways to really define your destiny line. And I'll open it to questions right here, right now, because I can keep on talking, as you all know, for quite a while without. I don't see any questions in the chat box, but if you feel like you can either throw a question in the chat box or please go right ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question. Any curiosity you had about what shamanism is, anything that you may want, or else again, I'm going to just continue. But as my beloved wife always says, just when you ask people to ask if they have a question, give them a minute. Because I'm like, okay, you don't have a question. I'm going to go ahead, Bridget, please.
So I have a question, which is once you kind of are initiated as a shaman, or if you've, I guess that the course kind of hones instincts that we already have, or like, those kind of things. Do you personally go for like tune-ups? Do you need like shaman tune-ups to kind of keep your focus, or do most people?
That's such a good question. Absolutely, yes. And I don't know if you're already seeing something different from me from last week when we talked, but I had a tune-up. Maybe you hear it in my voice already. I had a tune-up with a wizard, with an awesome shaman. And it was incredible. And I just love it and keep on loving it and keep on learning. But I'll say why we need tune-ups. It's exactly what I talked about, the collective consciousness and how we step out of it, how we become the true skeptics. Because those people who doubt what shamanism is are people just that don't know what it is. Or those people say, I'm a skeptic, and consider themselves that they've evolved out of a pagan old way of being, are simply taken in by a collective consciousness of lack of attention and a new way of being, which is our way. Our new way of being is TV and the cars and the computers and this. And the biggest, hugest part, especially for those of us who lived in cities or live in cities, is that the biggest part is that what's happened is that we've left nature. So we've come into an unreal place, because the only real thing is an ocean, is a sky, is a bird flying, is a dog barking, is a cat meowing, is all like. So what we have is it's like, I'm even looking at this laptop and the light that's on me. These are not real things. These are things that we've come to create by isolating parts of matter to create this world. And along with it, there's belief system. Along with it is a disbelief system that says, don't believe in anything weird, because then you're going to be threatening the rest of the tribe and we all have a problem. So you can't step aside. And the part that is really, really important, and if everyone would excuse me for a moment, I'm feeling the air conditioning talking about what's not real hitting me in the back of the neck. So what happens, Bridget, is that I go back with my friends. I did the workshop, or I did my work with the shamans, but then I was back with friends and we watched TV, and then we went to the mall, and then I went shopping to TJ Maxx I bought a Buddha for $9.99, and then I went to this and I got my organic food, which is like super expensive because it comes from, I don't know, Patagonia. And I go back to what is not real, because all these things are not exactly real. They're a result of this last 100 years of the Industrial Revolution, and what's created around us, what we were born into, right? The Industrial Revolution, and many are born into the technological revolution, to believe that this is reality. And to also be afraid to even walk out in the bush because there's snakes, or there might be jaguars at night, and there are. But the thing is that if I'm never walking out in the bush and walking in the jungle, I don't really have a direct connection to who I am in relationship to truth, in relationship to nature, in relationship to the only thing that is true and real. So I'm protecting myself. Maybe when I was living in Greece, Athens, Greece, I had an apartment and I lived in a photography studio, and Sunday morning we'd go for half an hour walk at this woods. It was so funny. That was our only connection, and be like, okay, let's go neat. So I do my tune-ups, and this is the essential part that I really want to come to and say. This one sentence is the essence, is that when I'm thinking, and I'm not only emanating heat, we could take a thermal picture of me and see that there's heat emanating from my body, but I'm also, through this heat, I'm emanating this signals of my chemical reality, and my chemical reality describes my thoughts, or my thoughts create the hormones. My hormones are, through my electricity, pushing out through my magnetic field that is in touch with the magnetic field of the planet. This is all physics, right? This is all our reality. And as I'm emanating my magnetic information of what I believe and what I disbelieve in the magnetic field, it tags along with everyone else's, what we call collective consciousness. So 2 things that I do is that what I try to do, so I don't need a tune-up that much, is like, or let me finish this. If I live in the collective consciousness, then slowly, I will be carried away, and I will think like the collective consciousness. And then would ask around other people and say, what do you think? And then I will agree with them. I start going out of the pagan way of being, or the natural way of being. I go into the modern way that has been discommunicated from nature. So I need a tune-up. Even if I don't meet up with people, I'm in the waves of the collective consciousness, and some thoughts that I have, most thoughts of the narrator are thoughts that are not my thoughts. They're collective consciousness thoughts. And I'm like, I have an idea, I will never do that, or I never do that. And I look, and everyone on Facebook is saying the same thing. It's because I'm carried away. So my check-in and my tune-up, Bridget, I do 2 things. One is I stay away from collective consciousness. I haven't watched news or anything that has to do with news over a year and a half. And some people tell me, well, how do you know what's happening? That's irresponsible. I will tell you exactly what's happening. Everything is happening. There's people that just died the second when I said the word everything. There's people that died. There was people that were born. There was people that fell in love. There was people that were betrayed. There was people that were murdered. There was people that were helped and healed. There was people that found a moment of ecstatic communion with God, and there's people that live deep into the purgatory. Everything is happening constantly, but that's not a part of the collective consciousness awareness. We think what's happening is what they're telling us on the news and what might be happening, or at least where I hang out, going to TJ Maxx and what was happening in Lenox, Massachusetts, is not what is happening. Everything is happening. There's wars happening, and there's people that are reaching out with a white flag and say, let's sign a treaty. And everything has been happening always since the beginning of time. There's plagues happening, there's earthquakes happening, there's inventions happening. So basically, we don't need to know the news because there's nothing new. The news is it's like, what is an actual new thing that you have learned, in the sense of how can you add more of an understanding of how nature works? Because that major part is that when we left nature and we separated ourselves from nature, this is also in the Dark Ages, where humans said, this is coming directly from the Vatican, that humans are the favorite creation of God, and we are a separate class of beings from the rest of the beasts. They were named the beasts, and they did not have the ability to be civilized. I do not know any beast that has driven any other species to extinction, any other territory. Now, we're not talking about territory here. We're trying to save the last of the planet. We're like gone way beyond. It's just like, what is it? God gave us the special. He gave us this paradise, and what are we doing with it? So when we moved away from nature and our other beloved sentient beings and communion with beings, we moved away from our own nature. And when I look at people that come to me for healing, or I look and know like all these statistics about how people are flooding into therapists' office, etc., and we see this mental issues, 99% of it belongs because mentally we're disconnected from our true self, each and every person, and trying to figure out, why am I like this and why am I like this? Go and swim for an hour. Go dive in a waterfall, jump in a waterfall, reconnect to nature, and watch how your mind will forget about worrying about who you are. Because if you ask me, we are all one, and we're all God. We are God. God is within us. Sheila, thank you for asking a question. Go for it.
Okay. I really believe in shamanism, and ever since I learned earlier this year that this is something that we could learn without going down to the jungle. I mean, learning the traditions and learning the tools. And I really believe what shamanism has to offer ourselves as individuals and the world in general. I guess where my skepticism comes in a little bit is a little bit like, okay, we can learn these tools and we can learn these traditions, but if we haven't actually grown up in that culture, grown up with those traditions, can we really truly understand? I mean, yes, and logically or intellectually we might understand that, but can we really
can we really fully absorb it and understand it, or
yeah,
and be in it as a consciousness?
right? Yes, thank you.
That is such an awesome question, Sheila. Such an awesome question. And I'm going to say, first of all, the answer is yes, we can. And I'm not going to stay to that. I'll say why I believe, and I get totally exactly what you're saying. It's like, I'm not of that, I'm not of that culture. This is, we're talking about my thinking that the shamans, these sorcerers or mysterious people, are somewhere hidden in Mexico or somewhere in like the high Andes or deep jungles, etc. Then my discovering that, hey, well, they're everywhere. They've not only been everywhere in South America and Central America. For me, yoga is absolutely shamanic practice, and it is mentioned in the Yoga Sutras. Then you go to China, and the Chinese, the Taoists, and those people that created the martial arts and acupuncture are shamans. They talk about energy and how it flows, etc. And then you go even to Europe, those who were really in the hiding, the Druids in England and Scotland. Right? So shamanism is a human thing. And each different culture understands it and expresses it in a different way. But it's always that common ground. It's a relationship. There's several things about it. It's a direct relationship with nature is the common ground. And understanding that you have seasons, like Earth has seasons, in times and years of your life. Am I in my spring, or am I in my winter? Am I in my fall? You have moods. Where's the moon today? Is it full moon or is it a new moon? You have days that you feel really happy. It's summer solstice. It's like we're kicking out of a lot of energy. Or is it winter solstice? I need to go inward. I need to really just nourish myself and keep warm. So what I'm saying, shamanism is a relationship to nature. But I think the deeper part of your question is, how much can I fully awaken to be a seer? And that belongs to humanity, because none of these people of any ethnicity are extraterrestrial. They're all humans, right? We're human beings. We're of this species. So what it takes for me, Sheila, or what it's taken for me to be in the place, and and you know it also through the studies, that I don't claim to be an all-healing miracle worker shaman, but I rather think that we all have the ability to be compassionate, loving, and affectionate, and support others in their healing. And I know it as a fact that helps a lot and can make the whole difference. But furthermore to that, an awakening, I feel that through the last 18 years and the 16 years with studying with him, that I'm in constant awakening and evolving from my previous self, and just step by step by step by step. And the biggest part goes into a realization of, who am I? Or am I a shaman? Am I a normal being, a human being? Or all those thoughts are thoughts that we make with words. Like when you express that, you've arrived, your question got difficult because you were like almost grasping for the words, because you're at the edge of your consciousness there and you want to push forward to there. It's like, how do I go above that consciousness? I'm trying to find the word that is the next word that will take me above that. Can we reach that word? And we can, and the answer comes into a stillness and a silence, actually, rather than words, because the words belong to the collective. And if I look at the dictionary, I'm going to find words that bring me back to the collective. And there's a daring moment for each individual that I can, if I am going to be there to become the shaman, what does it really mean that I can be still, I can be silent, and I can be loving and compassionate with a wide open heart no matter what's happening in front of me? And that is one of the most scariest things for any mammal, and especially for us, because we're loaded with thoughts of the collective. We're loaded with, with inhibitions and with attitudes that come before us. It's like we're afraid of shamanism. I mean, we'd be silly not to, with so many tens of hundreds of thousands of people put to the pyre and killed. We really deeply believe that we can't. Because if I was to just say, do you think you could be a magician? You say, I can. Do you think that you could heal someone? You say, I think if I can learn some methodologies, I can. And I'm like, okay, guys, Sheila is into magic. To the pyre, and watch if your children or your children's children would ever dare again say that. Because that happened for centuries. Which reminds me of a story a friend of mine said that his mom had chickens, and there was one night 2 dogs jumped into the yard and they just made a mess. They just killed half the chickens, took a couple, they left, and some of them went like this and flew on the fig tree which was above the chicken coop. He says that happened 10 years ago. These chickens are like 27 generations later from that event. No chicken sleeps in the chicken coop till today. It's open and it's empty. They all sleep up at the fig tree. They don't. Like, because they know if they go in the chicken coop, they're going to be eaten. How do they know? They don't. Because there's a belief system that's running behind them. So for me, Sheila, I think that you are a shaman, and you are an awakened one, and you are a light of God. That God is within you and within everything. When the tree goes like this, it's God. When the blade of grass, when the grasshopper, when the sun, when a drop of rain, it's just like, and there's no doubting that what, this is not a miracle? Your next breath is not a miracle? Because we have the modern skeptic is a person that says, I believe in technology. And this is where we're headed. There's several of the people of anthropologists that are talking, and watch what's happening with IA and with science, is that slowly, while we left nature and started believing in technology, now we're going to only believe, we're replacing God, and this is what's happening too, with technology and science, quote unquote science, because our science is technological science, where science exists for century in the form of Ayurvedic medicine, Taoism, acupuncture, and bringing into balance, coming into nature, etc. So unfortunately, we're moving away from what is truth, and we're moving away from what is natural. And we're going to replace God, which is everywhere, everything, is omnipresent, or like Tantra Yoga says, there is no place you can go where God is not. We're replacing that with a technology, and we believe the technology. The big G, God, is going to be Google now. And so it's impossible for us to fully be there if we're not living it. I am what I live. I am what surrounds me. So I feel that it's really helpful to surround ourselves with people that think like us, and to read the kind of books that really speak the truths. I mean, there's just some information there. Entering the Tao by Master Ni, a must have. A must have. We believe in this age and era, after the Dark Ages, after we're in darkness and fear for like 400 years, we believe that people 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, were nowhere close to smart as we are. And that's such a huge misconception. It's a huge total misconception. Because Buddha, Christ, like we're talking about huge teachers, the Taoists, like they were very, very wise. They had deep knowledge and deep consciousness. And what we are, we have technology. But if you really ask me, can I make a TV? I can't make a TV. We think we're ahead of the people because we have TVs. And that's the most silly thing on the planet. We think we're smarter than people 2,000 years ago. I mean, 2,500 years ago, Democritus designed the atom. He designed the core, the neutrons, the electrons rather, that run around, and he described exactly how it moves. And he said, if we can split this inside the smallest particle of existence, we're going to find the largest power, and they could power up cities and countries. He knew of atomic energy before we had a microscope. There were Pythagoras, who made the rectangle and said, this is the most, the screen you're looking at and the boxes of that are on Zoom right now have the size that Pythagoras put in 2,500 years ago. He says, this is the size that you can communicate with, live within, that works for your species. They were way ahead of us. What's happened is that we went backwards. What happens is we took a wrong left turn. And I'll say it. What happened is that Neanderthals, when the new Homo sapiens were coming down they went up from Africa to Asia, and they're coming down from Asia to Europe. And these people that are the most evolved people are coming down to Europe, and then Homo sapiens discover meat that's still in Europe. They're Neanderthals. And unfortunately, they decided to still have fun with that. So we've created a new species that is a mix between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. We slowed down the Homo sapien evolution in Europe which starts showing up 10,000 years later when we go into the Dark Ages, and we have a species that is really afraid, xenophobic, is afraid of anything that is not of our tribe. We still pick up stones and we throw at people because we're like a mob. We're like this scared being that any idea that can threaten my reality has to die. Has to die. It's like there's no like concept of like maybe we can all learn from all religions and all kinds of songs and all kinds of languages, and maybe all species live together. But we're going to soon find out that without the species that we've killed, we can't live, because we're one with this kind of weird fish that lives in the ocean. We're one with that kind of what do you call it, a mammal that just went extinct. We're all interrelated, and we're one with all our thinking is one with all these languages, because it's not only species that are asleepness is killing, but it's also we're killing languages and cultures. And that's an important part also. It's just like, even this thing that people tell me, it's like, oh, this could be cultural appropriation. It's just like, who brought up this idea? Who brought up this idea? What does cultural appropriation even mean to me? Like, I'm Greek, but I'm American, but I live in Greece, and everything I know comes from Peru. I'm an earthling, and I bow to the Peruvian culture, and I'm teaching with my teachers. And anything else is xenophobic. When you say you can't touch, it's like, oh my God, yoga, the largest cultural appropriation that ever happened. It's like, we need yoga in the Western world. Acupuncture and martial arts, the second largest cultural appropriation. We need acupuncture. These are human things. They're not alien things. I'm not going to exploit something from another planet. The appropriation and being misappropriated is how the Western world, who talks about, is the only country or world that talks about misappropriation, cultural appropriation, has appropriated and disintegrated cultures, languages, belief systems, ecosystems. It's just like, it's crazy. So we come from a place that we know really well, and that's correct and that's incorrect. We come from a culture that has what's correct and incorrect, paradise and hell. There's no in between. And that's not true, because there's everything. There's yin and yang. There's white, all the way of the white shades to black and the black shades to white, and everything is there. So I believe that for me, it took losing my life to disconnect with that person that I was, a modern photographer that, my days were like, what's Vogue doing and what we're doing with the cover and what's Vichy and how we're going to advertise the shampoo. I believe that Ray, and I know that I didn't know how, but it took years. But now I am more connected with Don Sebastian and Don Francisco and Wilbert and Juanita, and I share more of a reality and how I see reality with them than I did with even myself 20 years ago. I believe that kindness, expressing kindness and extending help is the most beautiful human and shamanic thing we could do. And we're all shamans. Ramphis, I see an electronic hand.
Yes, this is brilliant, by the way. I want to give a big shout out to Bridget for, sharing this with me and inviting me. It's been wonderful to hear, your process and how you work. So I'm here with my partner in crime, Christy, and we've been listening. And a question that I have is, what is your definition of magic? And what are the tools that you use as a shaman?
My definition. Thanks for the question. Such an awesome question. I'm just checking. I'm happy we're recording this, because your questions, guys, are really what's pulling this out, and it's really important. It's like to speak to real questions. Really, I've kind of lost the last, especially 4 or 5 years now. I'm like, I don't know what's profound and what is not, or if I'm saying something that's wonderful or it's like whatever. But So what is magic? I think life itself is magic, Ramphis. I think that the sunrise today and the awakening of the monkeys, the holler monkeys and the birds singing were like, wow, magic. I think that magic has this moment of magic lies within a process that is happening in unseen patterns and mechanisms, right? So we're all matter. We all have this like body, and then we've made also even more solid matter. We made walls, or we made computers. We made our reality around us. Magic is the process that are happening magic is what is happening in processes and mechanisms unseen. So I think everything is magic for every breath we take. People refer to as magic maybe as a healing process of someone like myself when I was diagnosed and I was given 90 days to live. When I went to John Hopkins and they said there's nothing we could do for you, take care of your affairs. Magic is the fact that all of science and the common sense or the collective was saying you will not live, or even the statistics, and actually that got turned around, right? So it was magic because it was most unlikely, but then it happened and everyone said, wow, how do you do that? It's magic. But what I've studied and how I work like a shaman, to answer that second part, which is I think where it's all at, is that I realized that we like because we were so scared out of our wits about being witches and we wouldn't be put to the pyre, the people that created what we know as modern medicine were people that would never talk anything. They took dead bodies and they started cutting it up and they started trying to decide and figure out how this all works. And not only did they miss the point that it does not work in a dead body is a dead body. It only works in a live body because spirit is present. But they also missed because they didn't have the microscopes. And even now, with the CAT scans and everything, we're slowly coming to this. What the acupuncturists were seeing, because they were magicians, they were seers, we're coming to understand that we're made out of this stardust, which is mainly carbon, quartz crystal, and silicon. We're made out of this most advanced material you can even imagine. So when you come and you squeeze my hand, you're pressing into quartz crystals that are being attuned electrically with one direction, and I'm feeling a direction of an electric impulse sent through my nervous system. Through my nervous system, it awakens my endocrine system. And as my endocrine system begins to secrete these hormones, I'm beginning to feel that squeeze. And I'm feeling, oh, Ramphis is squeezing me as a buddy, saying, hey, man, that's really cool. Or I'm feeling this, and I'm like, oh my God, this is threatening. I can, through one squeeze, decipher exactly what you're feeling. That's magic. I've watched the shamans, and actually, one of the things that I've learned more than anything is, and I keep on saying so everyone here can hear it, and all of the students through the 9-month training hear it over and over again. When I asked, say, Don Francisco, I keep on saying St. Francis because St. Francis led me to Don Francisco, of course. When I was on my knees saying, Don Francisco, save me, I have like 60 days left. He said, I can't heal you, but I can train you to be a shaman and you can heal yourself. So magic is a realm that we enter in, and what I've been taught and what I teach is how can I step out of collective and how can I learn about specific mechanisms and how they can learn how they actually work, so I can make things happen, so I can make change happen. And what the essential change is that I change the way my electric body works. So I'm beginning to secrete different hormones, and I'm beginning thus to perceive my reality differently. Because all of your perception, Ramphis, and my perception, really at the end of the day, no matter who talks about God or Jehovah or Joha or Muhammad or Buddha, doesn't matter what people are talking about, our perception at the end of the day, every second of the day, relies on my perception, my perceptual reality. And my perceptual reality is governed by the hormones in the nervous system. So I'm an electrical chemical being. And this is something the shamans know. This is something that the yoga, that's why yogis created yoga, because it changes your endocrine system. And, I ask people, you guys I know, it's like if I ask you, have you changed? Were you different before yoga and different now? Everyone's gonna nod 5 years later because you change your endocrine identity and what you're secreting. You're more centered. You feel more that you're more in your own bubble and you're protected. The acupuncturists realized that if I could put a needle here into your electric system, I can change the way what do we have here? Large intestine 4. I can change how your intestine works. If I put it over here, I can change your kidneys electricity, which means I'm going to change your relationship to fear. I can put one here and I'm lung 1, and I can change your relationship to sorrow and sadness. So this is an aha I've had like 3 days ago after my tune-up, Bridget, that we are all who we are, and we've grown in our family and in our culture, like you say, Sheila. And what we know, and especially in our culture, it's like it's us and then the old mystery God. And the in-between is a huge gap. And even if I want to be spiritual, and I remember this about me when I was diagnosed, I said, I gotta find a communication with God. I was born in a religious family. So I was like, I'm alone. I can't pray because my family didn't believe in God. I don't believe in God. And I was like, oh shit, I'm really alone here. I'm stuck. So I started going to different churches and different monasteries, and I did find some awesome couple priests that were really cool and a couple monks that were really cool. And I broke down that wall. I began to feel that maybe I can communicate to God through these people. Until someone came along and said, no, 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 no. God is within you. And this was a guy in the church, a priest, high level. And I don't know if he ever became an archbishop, but he was on the way in Athens. And he was actually a person that had studied in MIT. I don't know how it's a Greek guy that is high in the church that was an MIT physicist. So he helped me break those barriers. It's like I can believe in science and I can believe in God. But the thing is that all in between is that you are a healer, that I create my reality. I manifest that. And we have come into a culture that I say I have to kneel down next to the bed and do this and give this prayer to something outside of me. Now, prayer is really powerful, and especially when it's done correctly, if I could say. But most of the time, I do my prayer, and afterwards I go to bed with a narrator voice in my head saying, well, now I asked God, and we'll have to see if it's going to happen or not. And actually, I did pass a red light, and actually there was this beggar, and I didn't give $1. And actually, I did do a bad thing. I broke something or whatever. And my narrator takes over and starts saying that, yeah, God is not going to give that to you because you're not good enough. Have you ever thought that? Let me see any hands waving. Yeah, because the same people that said you're not connected directly to God also said you're not good enough. And that's what these collective consciousness says. And Sheila, I can let go of that voice. And still, yeah, Bridget, I need to have tune-ups because I keep on going back and I say, maybe I'm not good enough. And guys, we're all good enough. We're better than good. We're awesome. We're beautiful. We're sweet. We're just, we're magic. Each and every one of us, we're these beautiful miracles in the happening right now, in your eyes, in your breath. And the most terrifying thing is to step out of collective consciousness. The most terrifying thing was me going down in a boat, down a river towards the borders of Bolivia and Peru, talking to these people that made me drink this most foul thing. And I'm like, okay, I drank this thing and I'm dying. And I'm going to die. And I'm just another gringo. And no one knows where the hell I am. And they're going to push me in a ditch. And no one's going to even talk about it again. No one will know what happened. And I'm like, I was afraid of cancer all this time. I was terrified. But I'm not going to die from cancer. I'm just going to be pushed in a ditch. And with that, a lot of my fears died. And with that, there was again in front of ayahuasquero, Maestro Panduro, and one more time on my knees, crying. This time I was wailing because I was missing my 2-year-old son. And I was thinking that my son, I'll never grow to know him as a young man. Actually, he's sleeping in, good for him, in the next room today. And he's a 19-year-old awesome guy. And, but I was on my knees and I said, Panduro, save me, I'm dying, I'm dying. He looked down at me, he said, you know something? He said, I don't give a damn about my own emotions. Do you think I'm gonna care about your emotions? And I'm like, what? I had to get up, I had to clear out the snot, the tears, and I'm like, and I'm thinking, this guy is not a healer. He has no compassion. He's not sending love to me. He's telling me this, that he doesn't give a damn about all this, and he's probably the one that's going to kick me into the ditch. And like, I'm like, take an inhale, and I'm like right there in front of him, and I'm ready to I wasn't sure what I was going to say. I'm going to say, I'm out of here, F you, or something. And he just reached out with the most calm, wonderful way, as if we've been brothers forever, and put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, I feel now you're ready to do the work. Let's get this cancer leave your body. So the collective consciousness is the Ray crying, believing in I'm not good enough, believing that I can't make this happen, believing what everyone else is telling me. You got 3 months, we got statistics, we got this reality that is the authority of reality. It's called the, what do you call it, John Hopkins, or the Greek hospital, or a National Institute of Health. I have gratitude to hospitals. Hospitals save, and here a huge disclaimer. They called me after a week from John Hopkins and said, "Do you want to partake in a study in the National Institute of Health?" And I did have one surgery and gave up my right kidney. And I know if I hadn't done that, I would be dead. But I also know if I had gone back for more surgeries or go back to who I was in Greece and I had not become someone else, that person in Greece was the guy suffering, the guy that had cancer. If I'd gone back to me, to hold on to that identity that I had, then I would have that identity. And that was a package identity. It was who I was, what I did, and have cancer. And that, I think, Sheila, is that where your question is like there's a sacrifice of letting go of parts of ourselves that is the most scary thing that we can possibly do. Because if I let go of some habits or some things that I do or some places that I go, I will lose my identity. And that's why evolution is so hard, because it's about losing identity. Because my identity when I was 16 years old was that. If I hadn't lost it, and there's people I know that are 15, 16, they still have that identity. There's guys that still play video games at 15, 16. They're parents and they're playing video games. But the thing is, if I lose that identity over and over and over again, I'm coming into a maturity of understanding a wider way of being, discovering a wider consciousness that I truly am. And I'll bring it to a close to say that yoga, and Patanjali, who wrote the Yoga Sutras, in those first 4 sentences, now begins the practice of yoga. 20 years exactly of studying it, I realized that means now begins the practice of becoming self-conscious. And then he goes on to say, we begin to control the breath. And when we control the breath, third stanza says, then we control the mind. Or rather, the control of breath brings cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. And the fluctuations of the mind thoughts are basically a repetition of what the collective says. It's a belief system. It's not reality. It's a belief system, not reality. So the fourth says, once I find the cessation of fluctuations of the mind, the shaman finds her place. We pause that thinking, which is the narrator thinking, and this other brain that we have, and this other amazing voice that we have, is the all-knowing voice. Is the quiet? I call it a quiet voice because that's what it is. It's really quiet. The shaman self inside, when I look at this, I realize now, 18 years ago or 16 years ago, I was over the valley, and I think I've shared this with you guys. It's like asking questions to Sebastian, and tell me about that, and how can we see energy, and how can we heal, and how can we rat? And he was like, whoa, gringo hermanito, just slow down. Stop asking questions and look at the sacred valley. Look in front of you. We're looking at this beautiful valley, right? The sacred valley and the river, Urubamba. And it says, everything is here. There are no questions to be answered. There is no mystery. Everything is here, right now. But in order for me to feel that and to know that, and talking, let's close with that, saying a shaman comes from the Tungusic language and means the knower. In order for me to be in the know, I have to quieten my narrator. If I ask anyone around me, they'll all say, be careful of shamans. There's great shamans, and there's medium shamans, and there's bad shamans. There's great doctors, there's medium doctors, and there's bad doctors. There's great car mechanics, there's medium car mechanics, and there's awful car mechanics. The more important thing when you meet a shaman or a doctor and mechanic is know that when you're talking to them, know that it makes you feel good. If you're feeling really good, that's the mechanic you should trust, the shaman or the doctor. If you're feeling kind of weird, say namaste and walk away. So magic, life is magic, and I believe we all commune with this magic always, and I believe that we're all shamans. I hope this has put some light onto the subject and has helped you release any inhibition around it, and has helped you loosen up some inhibitions that are really not necessary. While we think they protect us, they really don't. They're just holding us back from evolving, each and every one of us. Take a jump and a leap, and remember, all people that really discovered truths were the people that traveled the narrow path, right? Even coming from Christ, and even coming from Buddha. It's about awakening and realizing that this is awesome. This now here is awesome. And it's hard to feel when we're in loss or when we are all witnessing difficulty. It's still awesome. It's still a sunrise and a sunset. It's still just so beautiful. Hold your beloved ones. Give them the last bite from your plate. Give them the first one. Share as much as you can. Keep on giving. Don't look for love outside. Keep on loving others outside you. And then you'll be running it right through your body. And now you will be love. You will be in love. When we're looking to grasp it from the outside, that means we're in lack of it. I hope this has been illuminating and has been love. I hope you all have an awesome day. I will be sending out the recording. I'm hoping by tomorrow. I'm looking at Amanda now. Okay, so by tomorrow, you'll have the recording. We have a couple more things coming up. Thank you for your questions. I hope I answered them to a certain extent sufficiently. More is coming. I want to say if we have something on the 8th. That's a question I'm putting out. There's beautiful things coming up. We'll send it out with the email tomorrow. Thank you all for being here. Keep on looking at the Jaguar Path and join the free masterclasses. Join the 9-month training. There's still the 20%. Change your life.
Your Dharma talks tomorrow. Your Dharma
Oh.
talks tomorrow night. Yes.
Thank you. There's something. So Dharma talk tomorrow. Thank you, Amanda. Can you throw that? Do you have a link that is easy for you to put in the chat box?
Sure.
I appreciate that. Amanda and Nina keep these structures of magic happening, and no one sees them, but I'm able to reach out to you guys magically.
All right.
Again, Dharma Talk tomorrow. It's going to be a good place to continue the conversation. And if you have any more questions, I'm going to check in and see if that is there. There you go. And I'm going to give 30 more seconds. If you'd all go to the chat box, if you'd like to get that link, click on it. And even if you can't make it tomorrow at 6 p.m. EST, if you register today, you'll be getting the recording the following day. And I'm going to try to be on the 8th. We're advertising it, so we'll be there with one of the shamans for an hour in the evening. Awaken your shamanism and spread love to the world for the rest of the day. Thank you all for being here. And Horpichai, thank you from my heart. Nama Nama, enjoy the day. Lots of love to all. Thank you.